Long Shot. Please give it up for your host, Amber Kenny.
Hello, welcome to the Long Shot Podcast. We are doing a hosting off, an unhosting off. Anyway,
you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I'm definitely not hosting. With me tonight is my co-host, Sean Conroy.
Thank you for having me, Amber. Can't wait to hear what you have in store for us.
I have a very detailed plan and agenda, and I'm excited to get through it. No, I was out of town last week, so you had to record without me. So I'm sure we have a lot to catch up on.
Yes. Well, hilariously, I'll just tell you that I did record without you. And in my head, I was like, oh, this will be like a 15-minute episode. And it was, I think, like 45 minutes.
No way.
Yeah. And that really made me laugh. And then, and we can talk about this more later, but I did the Moth during the week.
And that was only 2 minutes.
Well, it's like 5 minutes. They put a time limit on it, and like they go at 5 minutes, you'll get this sound, and it's the saddest flute sound. It's like,
well, they don't want to like startle you.
And then they go at 6 minutes, you'll get another, and then the second time it's even worse. It's like, So I was like, and of course, and people, I don't know, have you ever been to the Moth? Have you ever?
I have.
It is? Yeah. So people take it really seriously. Like a lot of the people that go up at the Moth have worked so hard to craft their stories and craft every word. And, the end of the story is always like, and that rainbow let me know that I was every color of the world.
Right.
Or whatever
and like the first sentence of the story, like it's like, or it's like inverted, like very clever.
And the first guy who went up was exactly like that. He was like, Pink Floyd has a song that says blah, 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 blah. And then it was all about him taking drugs and then his wife giving birth and that's why Pink Floyd says,
oh,
wish you were here, and it's all just another brick in the wall, or whatever. It wasn't those songs, but it was, those are just the only ones I know. But it was Dogs of War. But so I of course was like, oh, I can just go up and talk off the top of my head with this one little fragment of an idea.
Yeah.
And I knew, like...
and you were setting up just, like, the setting, and they're like...
Yeah, exactly. Like, I knew as soon as I get up there, I was like, oh, no, this is bad. This is really bad.
I've made a huge mistake.
And it was packed. Like, it was a huge crowd. Where
was it?
There's always a great crowd for that show. It was at a place called, which is hilarious, it was called Jam in the Van or something like that, out in, like, Culver City.
Oh, whoa. And it had no relation to Jamie.
No relation to Jamie.
That's wild, right?
In fact, a rival to Jamie would be the only relationship they have. And it was a weird, but I guess kind of a cool place where I think it's like a music venue. And so there's a bar inside with a stage. And then the show itself was actually outside in the back, which maybe used to be a parking lot, but now they have.
That's kind of cool for COVID.
Yeah, right.
Of it all.
And they, I went inside at one point to use the restroom, and I saw behind the bar a bunch of things about the size of like a 5-gallon gas tank you would use to fill your gas tank. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like those red things.
Yeah.
And they were red. And I was like, oh, and I used to go to a sports bar here in Hollywood where you could rent, because there were so many TVs all over the room, all showing different sporting events, you could rent your own speaker and have a speaker at your table that you could tune to whichever TV you wanted to watch in whatever part of the room.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of cool. So I saw these things and I was like, I wonder, this is weird because it's a music club. I don't know why they would have speakers for you to rent, but it's
Right.
clearly something, because there was literally 20 of them stacked
wow.
behind the bar. And it turned out that they were space heaters you could rent, because apparently it gets too cool out in the parking lot. But anyway, I got up and I started talking. And as soon as I started, I was like, this is a fucking disaster. This is not. And so, of course, I was like, so anyway, that was how I woke up that morning. And then it was like,
yeah.
it was like, I just went, oh, I guess I should have timed this out better. And that was it. And they give you scores.
And Pink Floyd guy was like, yeah, guess you better shoulda.
Right. He was like, I worked on this for 2 years. You thought you could just get up and, and they score you. They have like teams of judges. Like, it's a whole production. Anyway, it was not I didn't do well.
It's funny that you bring this up, because I was on a long road trip since we last saw each other. And on the way out, the Moth was on, like, whatever NPR station we were listening to. And I'm telling a story about the Moth, and so did you. But mine's even more disconnected because I wasn't even there. But it cracked me up because this recording of the Moth took place in Wyoming. Like, they made a big deal about that. But the host clearly wasn't from Wyoming, like, had like a thick New York accent. I think the first person who told a story was not from Wyoming. They had flown there to perform there. And then the third person who told a story was lived in Wyoming, but their whole story was about immigrating from a different country to Wyoming. And so I don't know. I just thought it was like, I was like, why are you doing the show there?
The fourth person is Liz Cheney, who doesn't actually represent Wyoming.
Right. But like, why are you doing the show there? Like, it doesn't seem
right. Well, I don't know, but I think those NPR ones are like, so they do the one that I did, which is like, you literally get your name picked out of a hat. Or I don't know if it's a hat.
Yeah.
Some kind of container that the guy holds. Like
it's a space heater.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. But you get your name picked out, and then whoever wins that night gets to go to a quarterfinal competition.
Right.
And then
the semifinals
goes to another one, and then there's another one. And I think it's the one after that is the one that they broadcast on NPR. So it's people who have really... it's a cool show. I like it. I do feel like, first of all, I used to go 15 years ago here in LA, and it was so like, you just knew you'd get up because there was nobody there. Like, it was not a thing.
Storytelling wasn't.
And even at one point, I ended up hosting the show because somebody I knew who was one of the hosts wasn't going to be able to make it. And he called me and he was like, I know you've been there, whatever. I was like, sure. Now, forget it. Like, the chances of getting up are so slim, which is why I was so bummed that I wasted my opportunity. But the problem, and I don't even know really how to put my finger on it, because it's become such a thing, and because it's on NPR, and because people have heard so much of this kind of storytelling, I find, this is just me, my perception, I find a lot of the people telling stories sound very similar in the way they tell the story.
Right. Yeah,
they're like, the significance of that was not lost on me. I knew that hospitals were big places with some small problems and some big problems. And I had a big problem. You know what I mean? Like, there's like a...
Yeah, very NPR.
And, and it, as opposed to like somebody, there was one guy who was great, who got up and told this story about, what was he talking about? Oh, he was talking about having I won't go through the whole thing, but there's one thing that I will repeat that he talked about that was so funny. He told a story about giving a sex talk to his son, who was like going into 5th grade. Like, he said everybody in the neighborhood was like, did you give your son the sex talk yet? And he was from, I don't know what his background was, but culturally, he said he came from a background that was uptight, and you didn't talk about those things, whatever. And he was like, I'm going to break the chain. I'm going to be different. I'm going to tell my son everything he needs to know, whatever. So he goes, and he was very. It felt very off the cuff. It didn't feel like he was like reciting the words that he had written down and
Merriam-Webster state.
But he said he like everybody in the neighborhood was like, did you talk to your son yet? He's like, oh, he's only going into 5th grade. And they were like, you better hurry up. So he was like, okay, I guess I got to talk to him about it. So he whatever. He sits down with his son. He's going to tell him about, and he's like, we always have talked about, because he has 2 sons, and he's like, we'd always talked about penis and balls. We thought those things were so funny, and we would laugh about them and laugh and whatever. So he sits down with his son and he goes, I got to tell you about, boys and girls are different. And he goes, we've talked about this before. We know that boys have penis and balls. And so the 2 of them are laughing about that. And it's really funny. Yeah, penis and balls, balls and penis. You have a penis and balls. You got balls. We have balls. Like that kind of. And he says, and then I said, but girls and women, they don't have a penis and balls. Girls and women have, and the kid, the way he described it was, when there's the one kid in the class who knows he has the right answer and he can't contain himself, so he just like bursts out with what the right answer is. So the kid does that. So he goes, girls and women don't have penis and balls. Girls and women have, and the kid goes, an agenda. And the guy is like, well, yes, but no, that's not, So anyway, it went on from there, but I just thought that was so funny. But point is, I went on way too long, as I always do, and that was what happened when you weren't here last week when I did the podcast about
well, we like to start our show with a segment we call Checking In. Sean, what's going on with you? Unless that was it.
No, I have I guess another thing, which is I actually did 3 shows this week, which is not many for normal times. But
in the before times,
but in the post-pandemic, that's a lot.
Right, because how was your Swarm show? Did you talk about that on the Solo Bolo show?
I think I might have. I talked about a different show, which I was disappointed that you were not here to check me on.
Oh, good.
And I'll explain.
But if you knew how I was going to do it, then you have the voice in your head.
No, because what happened was it was a show where somebody got up and talked about it was an open mic stand-up show. And somebody got up and talked about their tragic life, like deeply tragic
just like life. Straight up therapy.
And but it was really intense. And then the host got on stage and was like, all right, everybody, please give it up for Sean Conrad. So I had to follow this up. But anyway, I did not feel comfortable talking about what this person was really talking about. So I did this whole thing that we had to pretend metaphorically that she was the wife of a sea captain and she was pacing the widow's walk in her house and watching as her husband's ship was coming in from sea, and she saw that it was only 2 days sail away. And slowly the masts came up over the curve of the earth on the horizon. And as it got closer and closer, and she got more and more excited to reunite with her husband after 2 years at sea. He was 2 years gone at sea. And then on the way in, it hit a rock and sank. And so she lost her husband, watched his ship sink, watched him drown. So I got lost in the whole metaphor of that, but I didn't talk about what she really talked about on stage, because I was like, if I just talk about it, it's going to sound like I'm a jerk. So anyway, but I did that show again, and it was much better this time.
Oh, good.
Because it was just people, telling jokes, which is what comedy is often about. So that was fun. And then I did the Moth show, and I've talked about that. I'm going to try to go to that again this week.
Oh, cool. You have a specific story you're trying to work out?
No, but I feel like it always leads to interesting stuff. And the stuff I talked about last week this is insane, but I started the story, literally just started it, obviously, like I said, didn't get far enough into it to even get to any of the stuff I really wanted to get to. And I walked away from the night going, I should just write it as a book. I want to write this as a book. Do people say that? Doesn't sound like a correct sentence. I want to write this as a book. Like, doesn't that sound like somebody's translating it into English from another language?
Yeah, how do you say that? I should write a
book. Not write this as a book.
Yeah.
I would like to write this as a book. Make it a book into pages and pages.
This is a slight tangent, but in one of the sketches that Jane and I wrote together many, many moons ago, one of the characters said, "You are crazy now." And there's something about the phrasing of that. There's no way to say it in a way that human beings say it. Like maybe you're crazy now, but like even the now at the end is weird. Anyway, but I was like, we have to keep it because I'm so obsessed with the phrase, "You are crazy now." Like, so, yeah, I will say that sometimes when something sounds wrong, I'm like, "You are crazy now." Anyway.
Which in that context, it does kind of make sense, you know? Like right at this moment, you are crazy.
Right. I am crazy now.
So anyway, that was, I feel like putting stuff out there leads to other stuff. The problem is, and this is why I'm disappointed I didn't use my time better last week. The problem is the chances of getting chosen are so slim that you could end up spending your entire night there just hanging out, watching other people do creative stuff. Although I actually went with a friend to this thing last week, and somebody got up to tell a story, and I was like, oh, that person, like they just seemed off a little bit, you know, like angry and like pissed that the audience wasn't on board with them right away. And also a little all over as far as like what the story was about. Like it seemed like it was about one thing, and then in the middle it switched to being about something completely unrelated to the first thing. And so I always find people like that, like I don't want to engage those people.
Right.
And my friend went to get more drinks at the bar, and that person immediately made a beeline to me and was like, "Do you do other shows? Do you do other storytelling shows? Because there's other shows you should do." And I was like, oh, God damn it. So when my friend came back, I was like, "Don't leave me alone." But, you know, I did join the Facebook group that this person told me to join, the storytelling stuff. Because I do feel like it leads to other stuff, like I said. So that was one. And then I did, on Saturday, for the first time in 2.5 years, I did ASSSCAT, the show.
Oh, wow. At UCB?
At UCB. So I hadn't performed at UCB for so long.
Have there been shows there?
There have. They just started a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And it's not called ASSSCAT anymore. It's called Elefante.
Why isn't it called ASSSCAT?
I think it is
trying to rebrand everything.
I guess. Yeah, to say this is no longer what it was before. It is now something different that doesn't have all the baggage attached to it that the other thing did. It was a fun show. I was glad I did it. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed the people I got to work with. It wasn't until the day of the show that I started thinking about what it all entailed in terms of like the UCB selling the theater and not being involved anymore.
Right. Did it feel different?
It felt very different. Yeah, it did. Just the show itself. I mean, I was so used to the idea for years, that show, I mean, you know, that's a show I started doing in like 1998, 97, maybe, which is a few years ago. And when it started, a big selling point for the show was that it was going to be $5 forever. Like it was just
right
for $5.
Right. And then they would pass the bucket.
Well, that was at the free show. There was also a
it.
free show for people who couldn't afford the $5. And then at the free show, they would say, if you can just give anything, please, you know, it was very focused on making it available to people who wouldn't necessarily have money to buy tickets to a bigger deal of a show, you know. And then there was all kinds of controversies about not paying the performers because people wanted to get paid, and that was very upset. I mean, there was just all kinds of stuff that got in the way. But anyway, I was used to it being this very, like, for years it was $5. Then it went up a little bit. Eventually, I think by the time we stopped, 20, you know, in 2020, which was 23 years later, by then it had gone up to $12.
Right.
But the show always started at 8 o'clock. It was 2, 45-minute halves. It was, whatever. It was what it was. Basically, it was like a 2-hour experience. You went, you sat in the theater, you sat for 45 minutes, you watched the show, you sat for an intermission, then you watched the second half of the show. Now, performers are all getting paid. Everybody's getting paid.
Oh, really?
Tickets are $20. The show is 45 minutes, period. Ends, there's no intermission. There was just a very different feeling to it, and I don't, like I said, I still enjoyed myself. I had a good time. I feel like, and I've talked about this in the show before, like improv to me, like improv is such a joke at this point because so many people who have come through improv programs have ended up writing for comedy television programs. So there's always an episode where everybody goes on a team building exercise to an improv show, and everybody there goes like, I have a gun, you're dead. Like they do, like it's just purposely
they do the bad improv
all the time. So it gets, and it's funny to me that it's the people who know it the best that are the ones that shit all over it. But to me, it is a special thing. Like it's a thing that I've been doing for more than half my life, and that is probably, I mean, this is a weird analogy to use, but it's probably the closest thing I have to like religion of some sort, where being on stage and being in that state of like, I'm just in the moment, I'm listening and I'm reacting is meditative, is like,
right. You get in
a sense,
that flow state that we've talked about.
And
you're
so
connected, right, and you're present.
So there's something about that to me that is important, and that was always how I approached it. And it becomes clear when it becomes so focused on everybody going, no, I got to get paid for this. I got to get paid. Like I need to get money for what I'm doing. That's just not an issue for a lot of people. It's just different priorities. And what's hilarious about it to me, well, it's a couple things. We'll see how long the setup lasts as far as people getting paid. Like I'll be interested to see. And it's also, it's like doing stand-up at a club. In a lot of the clubs when I was in New York, it's like the payment, if you get like $8 for the show, it's like, yeah, you got paid, but like, so fucking what, Right. So ultimately I was glad to be back, but it did feel very different.
Was it the same, like a lot of the same people?
Some of the same people, some different people. Yeah. So, I know they're trying to not just pay people, but they're also trying to incorporate more people into the show that weren't necessarily incorporated before. I think there's two sides to that story as well. Like, to me, it was always you put people in the show when they're ready to be in the show. And that's a judgment call. And so there's different people making different judgments. And sometimes people's judgment of their own abilities is different from what somebody else's judgment of their own.
Right.
But ultimately, it was some people that I had performed with before and some people that I hadn't performed with before. And so that's always an interesting thing too. It's like playing pickup basketball with people that never played with. You're playing the same game. You kind of know where to go, but there's not the same comfort level as there is when you're with people. And that was something I was thinking, because honestly, part of the fun of doing the ASSSCAT show was the fact that you got to see people you knew and wanted to hang out with and stuff on a regular basis, And not that any of these people are not people I like, but before the show, I thought I was going to be late because I hadn't read the email closely enough to realize the show was now not starting until 8:30 instead of 8 o'clock. So I was like, it was 7:58, and I was like, fuck, I got to get over there. So I was like, I got to call, I got to text somebody and let them know that I'm running late. And I literally did not have one person's number.
Oh man.
Which is fine, but it just means that it's not people that I'm like, oh, I'm going to see this guy. I'm so glad I'll get to catch up with that person as to what's going on with them. So anyway, that was this week, but like I said, it was just really great to be back in that theater doing stuff.
That is awesome. I will do my checking in. I went on a road trip with Jeff and Smudgy down to where my parents live in San Felipe, right. Mexico. And so that was like a big adventure. I mean, just, getting there, crossing the border with a reactive dog. And it was our first time driving in Mexico. And anytime we had gone to visit them in the past, we worked it out that we were able to drive with them there and back.
Mm-hmm. You mean like caravaning or
like in their car?
Oh, okay. Because I know caravans at the border are a problem. So
right. But yeah, it was, so there was like a lot of prep, and I know that my parents were very excited. And they wanted to talk to me for like a month about what road am I going to take down there. And I was like, I'm going to Orlando. I'm going to Las Vegas. Like I have to do those first. And then
one trip at a time.
Yeah. I can't wrap my head around that, but yeah, we got there no problem. Like the border was nothing like that. Like there were certain parts about the trip that I was like, well, here we go.
Well, my understanding is the border is just wide open at this point. Anybody's allowed to go either way all the time.
You're allowed to go, or at least
especially if you have fentanyl with you. Did you bring some
right.
fentanyl?
No, I didn't. Not this time. But we purposely planned our trip on days that the borders are less busy, like because my parents know the deal. And I think that
your parents are coyotes, correct?
Correct. No, it made a huge deal. I mean, driving into Mexico, I was like, I think that was the border. Like it was nothing. It was just driving. I had like Smudgy's like vaccination documentation. I was like gripping the seats, like our passports, and it was like, oh, we're in Mexico. Like
Bienvenido a Mexico. Populación 2000. Yeah. It's 2000. That's right.
But I mean, it's a long drive. It was like an all-day drive, and it's hot. And So the border was no problem, but then when we are, I don't even know, like time and space, it's all very foggy. But before we get to the town of San Felipe, there is a military checkpoint that there are men with machine guns, and they asked us to get out of the car with Smudgy. So we had to get Smudgy out of the car too. And they checked everything. I think they were checking for fentanyl and any kind of drug. But we were fine. It was fine. Smudgy just started barking at the tail end of that. And the guard was like, Malo. I was like, he's fine. He's doing the best he can. And
he doesn't like soldiers, sir.
He doesn't like a lot of things. But we got to my parents' house. Oh, the what I found particularly hilarious is, so we left really early on a Sunday morning. So we hit zero traffic in Los Angeles. As I said, we crossed the border like a breeze. And my parents live about an hour to 45 minutes south of San Felipe. So really they live in the middle of nowhere, but you say San Felipe because it's the easiest thing to orient. And so we had gone through San Felipe. We just needed to do that last 45 minutes, and we were at my parents' house. And again, hadn't been in traffic the entire time. Now we are in the middle of nowhere. We're like past electricity, and somehow, and we've been cruising this whole time. Somehow, exactly 40 kilometers away from my parents' house, we're behind
That's like 10 miles, correct?
I have no idea. No way to know. We're behind 4 huge trucks. I think they're hauling like cement going, I don't know, 10, 15 miles an hour. And so it was just like, I cannot believe we are in traffic now. So I kept joking to my parents, like, I don't think I can move here. The traffic.
I live in LA where it's wide open.
Well, yes, there's the joke. But and it was frustrating because, you're in a car a long time and you're like, we're almost there. And it was just like, we were pulling our hair. It was such a, well, and I told my parents like where we were outside San Felipe. So they got excited and they were like waiting by the side of the road. And then they're like, I don't know where they are, and went back home. And yeah, we got to my parents' house. They had secured us a little casita, one of their friends' house, which was like 4 houses down the beach, 4 houses south. So Smudgy, Jeff, and I had our own little place, which was lovely. And we would walk over to their house and have breakfast in the morning and watch the sunrise.
Like a miniature house.
Yeah, it's a very small house. And they fed us really well, and Smudgy loved the beach. Yeah. He ran and was so happy. And there were other dogs, like neighbors were there with dogs. And so that was a concern of ours. And Smudgy was like, hey, pal. Like, and I was like, who's this dog? I don't know who you are.
Friendly to the other dogs.
Yeah, like they were great. My parents have a huge dog. And that was a concern because he also has emotional problems, but they got along fine. And they just kept their distance. Like they coexisted, basically.
Emotionally problematic birds of a feather.
Exactly. So yeah, it was all really nice. Felt like we messed it up. We were having like a lovely time. Everything was great. And then the second to last day there, my dad was like, so our neighbor invited us for dinner tomorrow night. Do you want to go? And it just felt like the way that it was phrased, it was like, yes. I don't know. Like in hindsight.
Where's the catch?
Right. In hindsight, I should have said no. I want to spend my last night in Mexico with you guys.
He has trapdoors in the floor and he lets people rot in his basement.
Well, it kind of did feel like that to me because we were like, sure, they love Chulu, and I think they were really excited for Chulu to get to know us and for us to get to know Chulu. He's really important to them. And so we're like, sure, yeah.
Chulu is the neighbor.
Yes. And then it like turned out like he has 2 dogs, and one of the little dogs, Daisy, Smudgy gets along with great. But like, I think it was the day of this invite, Smudgy met his second dog and hated his guts. And so I was like, uh-oh. And then I don't know. It felt like this like snowball of like, oh, I don't think we realized what we got ourselves into, that all of the people who were on the beach were also invited to Chulu. Like, I thought it was like my parents and Jeff and I and Chulu, but it was like, and that's not a ton more people. It was maybe like 3 or 4 more people, but they were all bringing their dogs, and they all have multiple dogs. And so it like suddenly was a nighttime outing in a place we're not familiar with like 9 different dogs. And then my mom kept being like, oh yeah, we're not bringing our dog. It's too crazy. And I was like, what? Like, oh no, like, this feels like maybe we shouldn't do this, but we were like in too deep. Anyway, we got there. Smudgy went for that one dog he hates, whose house it was, and was like, I'm gonna kill you, motherfucker. And I was like, we gotta go. Like, we have to go. I know my dog,
Chulu.
I know my dog, and he will spend the rest of the night trying to start shit. Like, everyone kept saying, he's going to calm down. He's going to calm down. I was like, you don't know my boy. Like, he
is not going to calm down.
He is not going to calm down. And guess what? Even if he does, I'm not having a good time anymore. This is not fun for me. So we all left, and that was a bummer because Chulu was going to make dinner. And so there was nothing like, my parents are big about planning food, big about planning meals. And so there was nothing really set. We had cheese and crackers.
The casita has a refrigerator, but it's only this big.
Right. It's for a mouse. Mm-hmm. So we played dominoes and ate cheese and crackers and drank wine, and it was fine. But it was like
calling dominoes.
Oh, good luck. Good luck. I don't think there's a Domino's in San Felipe.
That Domino's tracker would have been like, there's 4 concrete trucks in front of the delivery. Be there in 11 hours.
But yeah, it wasn't exactly the tone we wanted for last night. It felt a little anxiety fueled. And like, I felt bad that maybe I created problems with their friend group and like,
so Amber and Jeff don't like Chulu's food. Huh?
Right. Like it was, and that we should have never said yes. And like, then they felt bad. Like I could tell that everyone was just kind of feeling bad, but trying not to feel bad. So, yeah, that sucked.
I mean, that's in a way, that's the story of my life, is feeling bad and trying not to feel bad.
I mean, isn't that everyone's?
Yeah, we all go through that. It's just a thing. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, it's very hard when you are on someone else's territory to negotiate what is the right thing to do. And I feel like, and this is not a knock on anyone, but I feel like everybody in that situation is kind of going like,
what do you want to
do this?
Yeah, I know. Over drinks and dominoes, we all were like, no one wanted to do that. I don't know why we all acted. I think we thought the other person did or something. Mm-hmm. But also, I think Jeff and I were very much on like, we're not from here. Like,
right. No,
is this the right thing to do tonight?
I agree. I totally agree with you. It was totally your parents' fault.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like, this might be an important part of my parents' life that they want to show me. And I think it is, but there's 11 dogs and I have a crazy dog. But yeah, it went by really fast. We were there, Sunday through Friday, and, yeah, it's really beautiful. lots of sunshine, lots of swimming. We came home Friday night and it was like gray and rainy. It was like coming from summer to winter. It was very strange.
Yeah, that was well, so Saturday night was when I went to do ASSSCAT at UCB, or Elefante, I guess I should call it. It'll take me a while to get used to the new terminology.
But is there, I have questions about that, because I understand wanting to like leave behind the bad taste in people's mouth if they have that. But if you do have a show like ASSSCAT, or like formerly known as ASSSCAT, that has like a built-in brand and fan base, it's strange to completely leave it. Like, it almost call it like ASSSCAT 2 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I think
because if I saw an Elefante sign, I would have no idea it had any relationship to ASSSCAT.
Right. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And it's a weird thing because it is still called the UCB Theater, as far as I know. Like, that's the
thing that could change, you guys. Yeah. But okay.
And like, to me, Elefante, I guess, is like a reference to Harry Belafonte, Elefante. Like,
okay.
Yeah, it's very...
It's an A to C, that's for sure.
You have to do the work, right, to get there. But anyway, Saturday afternoon, I was teaching a class. I was literally exactly in this position teaching a class, and all of a sudden my power went out. Because it trickled rain, and there was a blackout in my neighborhood. And that was frustrating. Like, losing power when the way we live our lives now is
it's a big deal. Yeah.
Because my phone was running low, my computer was running low, my lights didn't work, nothing. So I was like, I called the power company and they were like, "Oh yeah, it'll be back on by 6:30. I was like, great. It was not on at 6:30. I went off to do ASSSCAT, or I should say
Elefante.
And actually, I was thinking we could call it 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch.
Just call it Beetlejuice.
Right. Get it? But so I got back from that, and I did a thing, and I did it, and I knew I shouldn't do it, which was, I bought food to bring home and eat dinner after the show, which is fine. But I also stopped at the supermarket, and I was like, I kind of want some ice cream, but I'm not sure if I want this kind or this kind. And ordinarily I would just make a decision, but I was like, I'm going to live it up. I'm going to get both, and then I'll have ice cream for the entire week, and I can have whatever I want. And I got home, and the power was still out. So I had to put the ice cream in the warm freezer, and, ice cream. I don't know if you know about ice cream, but
it needs to be cold.
It has to. So anyway, I woke up at 6 a.m. and all the lights in my apartment were on. I was like, "Oh, okay, the power's back on." But that was all, I think, because of that tiny, tiny bit of
like storm
rain. Yeah. Not even noticeable. I feel like the infrastructure in LA is just on the verge of total collapse at any given moment.
My parents said it was good that we left when we did, because that little bit of rain at the border, like a lot of the roads that I would have had to take to leave were flooded. So we would have been stuck there. That was
why the concrete trucks were going, was to put concrete down.
They were trying to prevent that.
Yeah. And then, nightmare. That could have been a big problem.
That would have been
stuck in San Felipe and trying to get back to Los Angeles, and storms and roads washed out.
Oh, that was the other thing. When we came back through the border back into the United States, that was not as simple. We timed it, and we went on a Friday on purpose so that it was the easiest it could be, but it was still probably, we had to wait in line for a half an hour, which is not, I've heard horror stories of, hours and hours and hours. But we get up there and the guy, like, you have to show your passport to like a robot computer.
Show me your passport, please.
Truly. And then you pull up a little while, like a few feet later, and there's a guy. And I guess he's like verifying. I guess maybe it's to save time that the computer could already have your stuff pulled up and he just has to verify that it's you instead of doing that manually. But then he was saying that something wasn't working and he had to come out and write down our license plate number manually anyway.
Just because I am a robot does not mean I don't like to take my time and once in a while shirk my duties.
But he was very chatty with us. And again, we were like, here's Smudgy's paperwork. And we were like ready to, it was this ongoing joke because one time I went through the border with my parents and they're like, anything to declare. And for some reason, my dad was like, yeah, we got some eggs. And they was like, stop the car, get out. Like, everyone needs to be searched. So we spent the whole morning, Jeff and I joking, being like, I've never had an egg. I don't know, like eggs. I don't know anyone who eats eggs. Anyway. So the guy was very, very chatty.
No, we don't. And certainly we don't have any eggs. Right, stop the car. Get out.
Right. But I'm sure it's like, that's the way they do it, at least with white people, is like, he's being chatty, but he's also testing us. Like the chattiness has an agenda.
Right. And you guys making it back on a Friday night. You probably got a lot of plans, huh? You guys like to get high? You like to bring it back with you?
Well, and we were so tired and like hot and in the car and stressed that he was like, so when's the last time you went across the border? And we both were like, it's been like 10 years. And he was like,
in Mexico for 10 years, huh?
And he was like, he did that. And I was like, May, we went to Lampy's wedding in May, but we didn't drive. Like, we weren't lying. We both were thinking like when we drove across the border. But I was like, man, we look like such liars. Because May is not that long ago. And he's like, that's what I was looking for, May. And he went to the same school as me, Cal State Fullerton. And he kept saying stuff like,
really?
Yeah. Well, he kept saying things like, Orange County. I wouldn't go there now. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. Like, I don't know what you don't like about it, but I'm just going to be like, please let us go past. I don't want to start a fight with you. Like, what is good about it before and what is bad about it now? I couldn't guess. Anyway, I think this is a good place to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll have a segment
I was just going to talk about why Orange County sucked.
Oh, no, thank you. I mean, I think I'm the expert and short break. And when we come back, we'll do a segment that we love to call Parting Shots. And we are back again. This is the Long Shot Podcast. I don't know why you wouldn't know that at this point, but
people could just be tuning in.
That would be crazy.
I don't know what time this show comes on
after commercial breaks. We are at that part that we like to call Parting Shots, and I'm going to start this week with Sean. Parting shots.
Yes. Okay. So I have two parting shots. One is I think Amber should get in trouble for not watching the last two episodes of La Brea and being able to catch up on that this week.
Okay.
think there should be some kind of penalty for that.
It will be watching 2 episodes.
No, we talked about this before the show. I did recap episode 2 last week, but we'll wait till next week to get into episode 3. I would say when you watch episode 2, here's what I think you should do. There's a guy who's been in it since the beginning, not a major character. He has curly hair and like glasses and maybe a goatee.
Okay.
And he complains a lot. Like his job is to complain.
Okay.
And in episode 2, I took a guess at his name and his profession. And I was not correct, but I was close on the name. Okay. I thought. I mean, not really, but, you know. And then in episode 3, we find out his profession. And I was totally wrong on that. But,
I thought you were saying, and I nailed it.
No. But just when you see him in episode 2, see if you can figure out his name and his profession. Okay. And I'm excited for you to watch episode 3 because there are just so many mysteries going on this show. So many things we don't know, you know, like we're just not sure why people are taking the actions that they're taking. And that's true in episode 2, but boy, in episode 3, does that get ramped up. Oh boy. Boy, does it get ramped up in episode 3.
You're selling it.
Why are they doing this? We don't know. We want to know why this guy is doing this. It's so compelling that he's doing this thing and we don't know why he's doing it, but we'll find out at some point, but not anytime soon. So anyway, we're going to get into episode 3 next week. And hopefully I'll be able to decipher my notes.
Oh my goodness.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3. 3.5 pages of notes.
Oh boy.
Episode 3. But the good thing, and we talked about this a little bit too, is this show does a great job of recapping in every scene everything that happened prior to that. Like, I was watching episode 3 today, not to criticize you for not doing that, but I was thinking about it and I was like, almost every conversation, if I was writing this show, is stuff that I would cut out because it's stuff that the viewer has already seen.
Right.
It's like a thing that we saw this thing happen, and now in the next scene,
it's 2 characters explaining what
they're like,
happened.
Did you see what happened in that last scene? Because if you didn't, this is what it was. This guy could not find matches. He was looking everywhere for matches. Carl could not find matches. He was like, has anybody seen the matches? He couldn't find them. And finally, Danny was like, the matches are over there by the mantelpiece. Mantelplace, whatever it's called. Mantelplace. And Carl was like, oh my God, yes, I found the matches. So that's what happened in the last scene. Now, here we are at the vegetable stand. What are you thinking about having for dinner? Scene. And then we go on to the next scene.
And the next scene would be like, so they were at the vegetable stand.
Did you hear about what happened with Steve at the vegetable stand? He was telling Dave about Carl and Danny trying to find the matches, and then they were about to buy vegetables, and that's the last we heard of them. So anyway, that is called a spaceship, and do you know who's inside there? Scene. Oh my God, we got to figure out who's inside the spaceship. There's also a very funny moment in episode 3, and I'm going to spoil it for you because it really made me laugh. You know, there's the character the girl whose name is Izzy in the show. Yes. The daughter, her name is Izzy.
Yes.
In episode 3, I think it's the drug dude.
My favorite guy. The guy who knows exactly what year like cows were invented or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was getting my master's in Thai at La Brea University And I know that camels and cows were invented in 9,999 BC. So we must be in 10,000 BC. But so he is talking to Izzy, and her brother is now in 1988. We established that the last time.
Well, and she is just in 10,000 BC this season. Right. Last season she was in present day.
Her and the dad were up above.
Yeah.
Or wherever.
Present day.
Right. They do call them the sky people.
They don't.
The Klingons call the other people the sky people. Yeah. But anyway, Izzy is talking to Scott, and they're meeting for the first time. So what this does is it gives us the potential for possible romantic relationships. Like he's like, I don't know if you picked it up from the context of their conversation, but my name's Scott and I love drugs. Do you like drugs? Maybe we could party together a little bit. It's Friday night after all. And we're not going through customs. So he's talking to her and he's clearly fascinated by her. She's beautiful. Of course he's fascinated by her. But he's like trying to get in with her by talking about her brother. And he's like, I spent time with your brother down here. But now he's in 1988, so he's not around anymore.
Oh my God. It's like a school for preschoolers. I mean, it's so
right.
Fully.
And she's like, yeah, I know. My daddy told me. But she goes, the weird thing is, I didn't know how much I would miss him.
You haven't been with him in a really long time.
No, the brother. How much you would miss the brother.
Yeah, but the brother's been gone.
But I feel like it's been like 3 days. Like, I don't feel like it's been...
But the brother was in the hole with the mom. It was the brother and the mom.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I feel like they haven't... Even though it's been 2 years since the show's been on, it's only been 4 days since the whole thing started.
Okay.
I think. I don't really know. Because they're still living in a trash bag outside a
right, but then they all change clothes every day anyway.
Anyway, Scott is trying to reassure her about her brother, and he's like, I don't think you have to worry because he's in 1988. He might come back with a mullet, but he goes, he's gonna be fine. And she goes, is he? And I was like, yes, she said her own name as a line of dialogue. I just like it when people say their own name as a line of dialogue,
Yeah. But it's also so condescending to be like, I don't know. He's going to be fine. He's in 1988.
Right. What does that even mean?
Nothing bad ever happened in 1988.
Mullet's huge in 1988. I don't remember that. I don't know that that's a thing that I think of when I think of 1988 is the mullet. I mean, that's he might come back with a hoop skirt. He could come back with a bunch of friends crammed into a phone booth together. Since he's in 1988. He might come back with a ticket stub from the movie Gone with the Wind in 1988. They're not doing a lot of good research on this show. Anyway, I just thought it was funny that this is totally a side thing, but Penn and Teller used to have a thing where they would go see movies, and whenever the people in the movie said the name of the movie, they would stand up and applaud in the theater.
I love it.
So funny. So anyway, Izzy says Izzy as a sentence in this show, which I thought was outstanding. So parting shots. Tune in next week to find out what's happening in the La Brea. Oh, somebody I know posted a thing on Facebook about La Brea.
Now you're bragging.
And I was like, I can't tell if you are into it or not into it.
Right.
But either way, just so
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
We are. So anyway, she's another one. When we do our finale episode, we should have a few people on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I said in my I didn't post anything on her page. I just sent her a direct message or whatever you call it on Facebook.
You slid into her DMs.
Slid into her DMs, and I said, I don't know if you're saying you like it or you don't like it. I think it's not good, but if you like it, that's totally valid. Everybody's allowed to like the things they like.
I don't want to yuck your yum.
Yeah. And she was like, no, I think I'm just blown away by like everything that happens is just something that I think, why would that happen? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's my parting shot. Enjoy the last few weeks of American democracy because it's all coming to an end.
That took a turn.
Yeah, we've grown up a certain way. We thought the world was a certain way. We thought the country was a certain way, but it turns out we were wrong. We were totally wrong. And people are okay with some of the ideas that I thought were anathema to living in democracy. There's lots of people that are okay with stuff that is shameful, you know. So revel in democracy while it's still around. It's over.
Are you talking about when will it end at the next election?
Yeah, I'm saying in 3 weeks or whatever.
Okay.
The Republicans take back the House when they dissolve the. And by the way, I feel like, you know, this thing about how the idiots like Marjorie Taylor Greene or whoever all call them the Democrat Party instead of the Democratic. Like the whole time I've been alive, it's been the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. But as an insult, the Republicans now call it the Democrat Party because Democratic is too complimentary because it's saying it's Democratic. Like, yeah. And so they decided, no, we're taking that word away. We're making it the Democrat Party. And I guess my response to that now is the Republican Party is a thing of the past. It doesn't exist anymore. It's not a thing. There is no Republican Party. It is a group of people who are who want to paint themselves as victims at every opportunity, who want to upset people, who want to divide people, who want to be okay with racism and anti-Semitism. So I think there needs to be a new name for the party, and I don't know what that is. But Republican is just not cutting it anymore because they're not about a republic at all. They're about.
Can't wait to hear where this sentence ends.
Yeah. No, I mean, I look at just this, the senator Tuberville from what's he from, Alabama or Tennessee, one of those shithole states down south, where he said,
"Love our fans from there, not you guys."
He said, he said the Democrats are not. Forget how he phrased it, but he was like, the Democrats are pro-crime. They're pro-crime because they think that the people taking stuff, the people stealing stuff, are people who want reparations and they deserve it. Like, it was so racist, the thing he was saying.
Right.
And it was so clearly racist. Right. And, nobody said anything critical of him in the Republican Party. Nobody was like, whoa, dude, chill out. They were just like, well, he says what he says, and that's how it is. And then, the thing that Trump came out with about the Jews better get on board before it's too late or something like that. Like, get on board what? And before it's too late for what?
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy to me that shit is just being allowed to fly. Like, people can just say that stuff, and the people who supposedly share their political ideals are like, yeah. I'm not saying I agree, but I'm not saying I disagree.
It's gross.
It makes me feel like I don't know what it makes me feel like. just not. It's not what I thought the world was like when I was this whole time. You know,
Yeah.
and now people are just fine with it, and it's like, who the fuck are you people? Who are you people listening to this show from Alabama and Tennessee?
Well, I can only talk about my experience, but I was talking about this week with my parents. It feels like the pandemic in particular kind of brought a light to the fact that on some, like, you're like, yeah, we hate people in government, but like there are grown-ups in charge. Like somebody knows what's going on. And I feel like the pandemic in particular kind of like shone a light of like, oh, there isn't like, oh no, like, and it might be childish, but like on some level, like if something really goes down, if like things get bad, like there are good people who will make decisions that help people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, that's not necessarily the case. And that's terrifying.
Well, right. I mean,
like the majority of the people in power. I know that there are good people. I'm not saying, but you know what I'm saying.
No. And you know, today they came out. There was a House committee that came out with a study about what went on with the CDC and how there were people working in, you know, aides to Trump who were basically terrorizing the people at the CDC into not releasing statistics and information that would hurt Trump politically in order to help people health-wise during this pandemic. There's this guy, Michael Caputo, who, I don't know if you remember any of this, but he basically had a mental health breakdown at some point, talking about the Biden hit squads were going to take him out and all this crazy, crazy shit. And he was in charge of liaising with the CDC while this pandemic was going on. And he's a fucking, just a crazy, like he's a Roger Stone associate. He used to work for Stone's firm, and he was really high up and really important in Trump's administration for a brief time because he clearly couldn't handle it. Before that, luckily, and I didn't see this addressed in any of the articles that came out today. Before that, he was a pundit on CNN on a regular basis, you know, going out and talking about how great the Trump administration was doing. And I used to hate him even back then, because they had lots of those people on who ended up in the Trump administration. Cuccinelli and the guy who was attorney general who used to sell toilets and, you know, all these people. But you know, this was the week, sorry, this is like going way too long, but this is the week where we saw the footage of Pelosi and Schumer and, you know, all those people in Fort McNair while the Capitol riot was going on January 6th. And that was kind of interesting too, to see how people were reacting under pressure, because say what you want about Nancy Pelosi, but she was fucking in charge that day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like a boss. And it was, again, it's this thing where nothing matters anymore. People can just say whatever the fuck they want and nobody cares that they're lying or whatever. Because in that footage, you see all the Republicans there too. Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, Steve Scalise, the top Republicans in the Senate and the House. And after it was all over, and they're all like, what the fuck is going on? We got to get these. Where's the National Guard? That was the thing, is that the National Guard would not come. And that was because Trump had put people in place to make sure that the National Guard would not come so that his followers had time to fuck shit up and destroy democracy, basically.
Right. Yeah, everyone got stopped right quick the day that they turned over Roe v. Wade. So it's,
well, and you know, the thing where they all cleared the park so he could have the appearance of with the upside down Bible or whatever it was, and
so
you know, what a dipshit. But what I was going to say is, so Steve Scalise is there with Nancy Pelosi when she's on the phone trying to get the National Guard. Like, you guys need to come. Like, we need whoever needs to give permission so that these people can come. Cut to a couple months later, Steve Scalise coming out publicly and saying Nancy Pelosi was involved in preventing the National Guard from coming, like just fucking lying about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's no consequences and nobody cares. And the truth is not evident because they have a whole, whatever. Okay, I'm done.
And that's your parting shot.
That was after my parting shot. That was my parting shot.
My parting shot's going to take like a pretty sharp turn in tone.
Great.
But right before we went to Mexico, I went and saw Oklahoma at the Amundsen. And it was great.
Okay.
It was fantastic. I know it's not anyone's like favorite musical. I'm sure it's somebody's favorite musical, but like it has sort of like a hokey.
Yeah.
But this was a really cool version.
Poor Judd is dead. Poor yeah. It's pretty dark in parts.
It's extremely dark. Well, and this was a very dark version of it. They sort of took out all of the hokiness. They made it like a sexy version of Oklahoma.
Nice.
So it was set like in present day. So it's like people wearing like jeans or like the women even are wearing jeans or jean shorts. And the music is mostly just like guitar. So it's stripped down so much that you realize like, oh, that is a good song. Like it's a good melody. Anyway, and that poor Judd is dead is the scariest song in the world in this show. But anyway, I thought it was fantastic. I came home and I was really excited about it. And Jeff was reading the LA Times this weekend, and he said that there was a review that people were storming out of it and like throwing up. And I wish you had seen it because I'm like racking my head of like what
would
could
make people
that
throw
have
up?
been?
Yeah.
Like there's a trans actress, but that feels like not enough for that. I don't know. Like
people are very offended by Surreys with fringe on top.
Surrey with the fringe on top is sexy in this show. Like that is saying something. But yeah, it was really good. It's fun to see theater.
The corn is as high as an elephant's eye.
I know. We were like, what? The only thing I could think of is like someone had the flu and the reporter was like,
I'm trying to remember what was the famous, I feel like maybe it was I can't remember. I think it was either Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction, because there were scenes in both of those movies that were very scary. Like there was the scene in Reservoir Dogs where he cuts the guy's ear off and douses him in gasoline.
Yeah, it's very graphic.
Light him on fire. And then there's in Pulp Fiction, there's the one where they take Bruce Willis and Ving Rhames down into the basement and they bring out the gimp. And they're like, because I had seen Reservoir Dogs before I saw Pulp Fiction, seeing them tie them to the sawhorses and they're about to rape them, I was like, and they have like a sword or something. And I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen here?
I know.
But I think it was one of those movies where people were
barfing.
Well, not barfing, but people were like leaving the theater and there was some famous thing where somebody went in the men's room and fainted and like knocked both of their front teeth out because they fell on the sink.
That's the kind of press you want to hear.
Right. Because they were so like freaked out by what was going down. On
no,
screen.
It was the movie where the train.
Right. People were jumping out the windows of the theater to get away from the speeding train. Yeah, I will say Oklahoma, not my favorite musical.
Everyone says that, but I was like, I'm seeing Oklahoma. Everyone I talked to is like, ugh. But was like
Farmer and the Cowboy should be friends. Like I'm trying to think of what and of course there's some song that's very relevant to the name of the show, and I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah. Somehow it's inspired by the name of the show.
Well, I think this is a good place to wrap things up.
Yeah, it is. We still have 2 weeks left in democracy. So
okay, great. We've lost a week since you last talked because it was 3 weeks moments ago.
Right, but then I remembered this doesn't come out for a couple of days.
Oh, great.
I just can't wait until the House Committee to investigate Anthony Fauci figures out what's going on with that guy.
All right. People don't know you're being sarcastic, Sean. You have to watch out.
I want to know what's up.
Okay.
With him.
Good night, everybody. Have a great life.
What is Fauci up to?
Eat your vitamins and call your mother. Get a good night's sleep.
Okay.
and I promise to watch that horrible show so we can talk about it. But yeah, smash that like button.
Subscribe. Ring the bell. Review. Things.
Send us messages and be kind to each other. All right. Bye-bye.
You're all we have.